So, my dear brothers and sisters, this is Good Shepherd Sunday. I particularly love preaching about priesthood, but I promise that my homily will be short. Ish. Okay. I was reading a book years ago called Way of the Wild Heart by a guy called John Eldridge, and he spoke about an experience he had where his little daughter was at a dance recital. So there were hundreds of parents looking, and his little daughter was doing her performance thing. And he noticed how she'd do her little step, and every now and again she'd check to see, was Daddy watching? Right? So she'd do her little thing, and then check again, and do her little thing, and then check again, constantly checking to see, was Daddy watching? Right? And it really struck him how she was doing her dance recital, hundreds of people there, but she was doing it for an audience of one. She was doing it for an audience of one. All she wanted was her dad's approval. She wanted Dad to see. I don't really care. There's maybe 300, 400, 500 people, I don't know. People here, it doesn't matter. I want my dad to see me. And I want my dad to say, proud of you, kiddo. Well done. And it got him thinking. And he writes a reflection on his book, in his book, about how we should live our lives, right? For this audience of one. We live our lives for God. So we may receive applause, we may receive thanks, we may receive adulation, we may receive criticism. But that's, while as human beings, a bit of praise is helpful, a bit of affirmation is necessary, absolutely, especially when you're young. But we don't do what we do for that reason. We're not motivated by, I have to do this in order to be praised. We're motivated, we should be motivated, because God wants us to do this. You know, I do what I do for an audience of one. This it became a movement in the States too, where sports personalities would either have it on their t-shirt or their jersey, or maybe even a tattoo, AO1, audience of one. So it's kind of a Christian movement where they would try to, in their sport, and I like the idea of applying our faith not just inside the church, because that's the easy bit. It's easy to live our faith here in the church. That's all straightforward. But to live it out there, that's where it's hard. To live your faith in the pub. Not that we know what pubs are anymore these days. We haven't been to one in months. But it will happen. Right? We'll eventually whatever. You'll get back there. I don't care. Pubs, whatever. So living your faith in the pub, living your faith in the stadium, living your faith on the golf course, living your faith when you're with the lads, living your faith in the workplace. That's hard. Living it here in the church, that's easy. That's the easy bit. So this idea of living our faith for this audience of one means, how do we live our faith out there? And for these sports personalities, there are some beautiful reflections written on it, because they say it doesn't mean that criticism is that we're indifferent to criticism. Of course, criticism hurts. It doesn't mean that we have some sort of magical power. If I do it for God, I'll have more strength, and therefore shall be more successful. It doesn't mean that either. It's not a good luck charm. But what it means is, win, lose, or draw, all glory goes to God. Win, lose, or draw, all glory goes to God. And I think that's just a fantastic way of not just of playing sport, but of living your whole life. It's kind of maybe like a modern version of the divine will. You know, that we do everything for love of God. We want Jesus to play in us. We want Jesus to socialize in us. We want Jesus to pray in us. We want Jesus to sleep in us. We want Jesus to enjoy himself in us. That's kind of the thrust of the divine will devotion. And similarly, living our lives for this audience of one. I do everything for the Lord. Something else, I suppose, not to misunderstand. Doesn't mean that I'm doing what I do to win God's love, or to win his affection, because that would be a misinterpretation as well of God as Father. Because if we have to win God's love, then what kind of a Father is he? Now, why mention this today? As a priest, because you're visible, there's a danger or a temptation that we can live our lives not for an audience of one, but we can live our lives for the masses. Not for the masses, but for the masses. You get it? For the crowd, right? For the crowd. And then whatever is popular, whatever gets us applause, that becomes the direction that will be recommended, the direction that we will be told to go. Don't rock the boat. Don't ruffle the feathers. Don't do anything that might cause the collection to decrease. Tell the people what they want to hear. Preach this gospel of niceness and all of that. And there's a chronic danger there, because that's not the shepherding vocation that Jesus speaks about. Remember the good shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep. So there's a profound link, or there should be a profound link, between the way a priest lives his life and the way Jesus lived his life. We're called to be another Christ, so there is no other way. Now, we'll express it in different ways. Some maybe are better preachers, some are better organisers, some are better with youth, some are better with the sick or the dying. Of course, there are different charisms and strengths and weaknesses within each individual priest. But within that, though, more globally, all of us are called to be like Christ. And Christ was a victim. Christ died for love of his people. So inherent to the way we live, our priesthood must be that we sacrifice ourselves. There's no other way. I remember when I entered our seminary, one of our priests, he gave a homily saying that the priests stand on two legs. One is the leg of prayer, the other is the leg of self-sacrifice. Prayer and self-sacrifice. You don't pray, you're standing on one leg. You can't go very fast, and you look pretty stupid. Right? You don't pray and you don't sacrifice yourself. You're not going anywhere. So you're the shepherd, but you're not actually moving. So are you going to lead your flocks to green pastures, or just let them do whatever they want? Are you going to lead them away from danger? Probably not. Prayer and self-sacrifice. Now, again, I think this whole pendulum effect, maybe before the council there was so much emphasis on self-sacrifice and fasting and every this self-scourging and the very typical Irish spirituality, which always has to do with misery. If you've ever been to Loch Derg, for those who don't know what it is, it's this island of misery and misfortune and briars, brambles, thistles, barefoot, hungry, walking around, praying for, doing the beds, as they're called, on these old foundations of beehive huts. And it's very, very Irish spirituality. It has to be hard, it has to be miserable, and then 'tis good. I think we kind of swung in the other direction, though, afterwards, where it's all about being nice and being comfortable. But that's not what the Lord speaks about. This is the chasuble that I was ordained in almost 11 years ago now. Jeepers. 11 years ago I was ordained in Rome, and this was I chose this image on the front, so it's stitched, and there's a small story behind it. Will I tell it every time? We probably don't. I'll tell it anyway. So I chose the image and I gave it to the sisters because they were stitching it. And after I sent it off to them, I just looked at it again and I thought, it's really, really nice. But Our Lady has this big hook nose. She had this big hunker of a nose. And I said, sisters, is there any chance you could just reduce Our Lady's nose size from the original? Because I had like a photocopy of the size I wanted, the proportions and all that kind of thing, gave it to the sisters. And they thought it was hilarious that they had to restitch this and give Our Lady a nose job. So anyway, this is my ordination chasuble. And before I did my ordination retreat, I read this book cover to cover. And it's by far, I'm not much for reading, unfortunately. I don't give it enough time, but this book was just absolutely epic. Fulton Sheen, The Priest is Not His Own. And I loved it. I've absolutely scrawled and underlined and NB'd and the whole lot. I get loads of meditations out of this. It's just fantastic for priesthood. But there are numerous things he speaks about. I just want to speak about maybe 3 from that today, very briefly. But he speaks about the experience he had, which I've had often as well. As a priest, when you're flying over a city, I used to fly often to Rome, back to the seminary, and when I worked there in Naples, occasionally I'd fly back at a certain stage almost once a month. And often when you're flying over Rome, population of about 2.8 million, you see hundreds of thousands of lights, tens of thousands of houses and cars and stadiums and car parks and motorways. You can just, it's amazing, like from the air, you're looking down, you can just see, that's the big ring road around it, it's called the Grande Raccordo, the big ring. You can see it, you can see that the red lights going that way and the white lights coming this way. 2.8 million people. And you're flying over the city like as a shepherd, and you're thinking, from here, the phone that you have in your back pocket is absolutely indifferent. From here, it makes no difference to me whatsoever if you're a millionaire and you've got enough to pay the bills. From here, it makes no difference if you have HD eyebrows and yours are a bit fuzzy. From here, none of these things make any difference. From here, the only thing that matters is are you a saint? Are you living a life that when eventually you have to leave all this stuff and go above where I am now? That's all that matters from where I'm sitting. It's like God's perspective on our lives. And I think as a shepherd, these are the kind of thoughts we should have. This is my responsibility to get people to heaven, to be Jesus for them. One of the quotations I just wanted to share with you today. One wonders if we do not underestimate the possibility of conversions. The failure may simply be in our defective preparation and approach. The unbelievers will not go to hear philosophers, but they will go to hear saints. This is the standard he sets for himself. So if we're going out preaching and teaching, they're not going to listen to us just because we're, funny or entertaining or we say what they want to hear. They will for a time. There'll be temporary fame and success in that, but there'll be no conversions. There'll be no fruit. But they will go to hear saints. He says elsewhere, the church makes no impression in the world so long as those outside see it as a sect or as an organisation or just one of the great religions. The Lord made his impact through the cross. The Lord made his impact through the cross, through sacrificing himself. As the shepherd, so the sheep. As the priest, so the people. Priest-victim leadership begets a holy church. What the priests are in the parish, the diocese and the nation, that likewise will the faithful be. That's a whopper of a sentence right there. We have to lead, and we have to lead from the front, and we have to lead standing on two legs, the leg of prayer and the leg of self-sacrifice. The book is called The Priest is Not His Own, so I just want to finish with the last line, which explains the title. As Mary said after the crucifixion over her son, who was laid in her arms, that's the image I have here, "This is my body." So she will say at the death of every priest, "This is my body, my victim." As I formed Jesus the priest in my womb to be a victim, so I helped Jesus to grow in you. No, the priest is not his own. He belongs to the mother of Jesus, once and always the priest victim. Amen. So let us stand as we profess our faith.